Welcome back to episode 175 of 5 Drinks to Midnight, the show where we bring the questions, guests bring the drinks, we try to wrap up before midnight. Today we're headed to Palmetto to talk to David Curiel, National Spirits Manager for Oliver McCrum Wine and Spirits. But before we do, like and subscribe, hit the bells, the whistles, leave a comment if you like what we're doing. Let's get started. Midnight, 5 drinks, 5 questions, midnight, whatever comes first. How you doing today, sir?
I'm great.
Excellent.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having us at Palmetto. I'm so excited for this. This has been almost a few months in the making, so this is awesome.
Yes.
So, question one, what are we drinking first?
Well, we've got a little Goofy Bandit, New York cold brew coffee liqueur, and tonic. You know, I bumped up the proof a little bit with some vodka on the recommendation of our friends here at Palmetto.
Excellent.
Ryan's a drink wizard, so
excellent.
Whatever he says, I trust.
Yeah, there you go.
This is a coffee liqueur that I make here in New York, in Yonkers.
Okay.
And it's made with fair trade, organic, cold brew coffee, and then the base spirit is made out of whey, which is a byproduct of making yogurt. It's a sustainable product. You know, this whey would have gone to waste. They would have thrown away the whey anyway. And so instead of throwing it away, they made it into neutral spirit, which neutral spirit is this ubiquitous thing, and so many spirits might as well come from something that needs to be recycled. And so that's the coffee liqueur, and then there's a little bit of tonic and a little bit of vodka, and that's the whole story.
Fuck yeah.
All right.
That's awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh yeah.
All right.
That's a good way to kick off a Monday morning.
Gotta warn you, very caffeinated.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah. And you make that's here, made New York specifically?
It's made in Yonkers.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, there's a little tiny distillery called Namias.
Okay.
It's a real mom and pop shop. They opened the distillery like, 12 or 13 years ago to make something called mahia, which is an unaged fig spirit. Okay. It's typical of Morocco. So the distiller, this guy also named David, is from Morocco, grew up making mahia with his family, decided like, hey, let's open a distillery and make this mahia spirit, which is phenomenal. And they're friends, so they're nice enough to let me use their space once a month or something and make this coffee liqueur.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Love the people too.
Thank you. That's a picture of me actually. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, question one. It's always an origin story.
Okay.
So, how'd you get started in the hospitality industry? And then what made you want to jump into basically the role you're in now?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to take you back a ways here. It's going to appear to be verbose, but I promise that there's a point to the story. When I was a kid, I had a parent in Philadelphia, which is where I was born, and then I had a parent in Minneapolis, and that was my mom. And so, whenever I would drop out of school, or get kicked out of school or whatever, I would go back to Philadelphia to work with my dad as a car mechanic in North Philadelphia. Okay. Taxi garage. It was kind of like that show Taxi. What's the character's name? The Andy Kaufman character. Anyway.
Just a minute. There's only one thing you need in life, and to make you happy, and that is friends.
That was my dad, basically, and so, and it really, that show was pretty much in a nutshell what our life was like. It's funny, right? And I really wanted to be a mechanic, and I thought that was what I was going to do, but every time that I would do it for, more than a few months, I would start getting rashes all over my hands, and I would have to stop, and so then I'd go back to Minneapolis, I'd enroll in school again, I'd get started in some new school, I'd get kicked out, I'd go back to Philadelphia and do it all over again. Yes.
Getting kicked out. How old are we talking here?
From 13 on.
Okay.
I probably got kicked out of 6 schools.
All right.
Yeah. I wasn't a great student. Anyway, it was a while ago. I feel comfortable talking about it.
There we go.
Yeah. So finally, anyway, fast forward. I was 17, and my high school girlfriend well, she was in high school, I wasn't, but she graduated and we decided to move to San Francisco together.
Okay.
And I had it in my head, like all I wanted to do was work in a coffee shop.
Right.
Like I was like, I loved coffee shops. I was like too young to be able to go to bars legally. And so like, I identified with, the environment, the atmosphere, and I really wanted to work in a coffee shop. I loved the vibe, I loved the whole thing, I loved the hospitality, and I loved coffee, So I went around to all the coffee shops in town, all the cool places, dropped resumes, and everybody rejected me. They all said that I didn't have enough coffee experience, right? Yeah. So I was forced to go back and work as a mechanic again.
Okay. And
there was this garage, there was this Irish dude, Brian McAlinden on 24th and Guerrero, and the guy was like, he hired me, and so I was working for him in the garage, just whatever, doing brakes and tires and the easy stuff. I wasn't like taking apart engines or anything like that. And I wanted to advance myself. I was very ambitious, and so I asked him like, hey, what do I do? Like, how do I get ahead in this business? Like, should I go take some classes? Should I like try to get a certification? Like, what do you think I should do? He's like, hey, look, you could do all that stuff, but like really what you should do is just go work in restaurants because that's a better business. And I was like, okay, all right. And so I did that. I hit up my cousin. He got me a job as a food runner at this restaurant called Home that was on Church and Market, which was like comfort food, pretty like queer restaurant, and it was right at the end of the Castro. Great community of people, and that's really where I got my chops. That's where I started. And now that garage where that guy, Brian McAlinden, was, that's a restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah, so he wasn't wrong. Yeah, harder business.
Yeah.
Anyway, I loved it. I worked in restaurants for, 15 years basically. I worked every position. I was a food runner, I was a busser, I was a server, I was a bar back, I was a bartender, and I kept kind of ending up behind the bar for some reason. I don't know. People would see me and they would just kind of push me into the bar. Like, that was just what ended up happening, and eventually I found myself at this really great bar on 16th of Valencia called Dalva, and it's two parts. It's like a front bar called Dalva, and in the back there's a little cocktail bar called the Hideout, and it's owned by this great guy, Eric Reichborn, and he ended up being kind of a mentor for me.
Awesome.
And I started out like, I was just like, I'll do whatever, I'll work the door, I worked the front bar, and then like eventually I ended up running the place, and it was great, and it was great until it wasn't, and I just felt like, the late nights was like starting to get to me, and I just needed something different, and I asked one of my vendors like, hey, are there any opportunities? And I found myself on the other side of the business.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's what
Thanks.
Like basically getting kicked out of school, becoming a mechanic, but then falling into bartender.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Then that was all back in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Then what made you make the jump back to the East Coast?
Oh, well, so I was working for this distributor in wholesale, and I ran into, there was an event at this restaurant called La Conda, which is gone now, but it was owned by this restaurant group, Delfina, on 16th of Valencia also. And so I was like guest bartending this event as one of their vendors, and I ran into Michelle Boscia, who's Oliver's business partner. And I actually had known her like years before. Like we'd lived in the same building, like, I don't know, 10 years before that or something. And it just so happened that that account was, my best account for spirits. Like, I had the whole well, vodka, gin, rum, tequila, whatever. But then it was also their best account for Italian wine. And so she was like, hey, listen, we got this thing going on in New York. We're trying to figure out what to do. We want to open the market there. We kind of started the process, but we kind of got to figure out what we're going to do next. She was like, do you know anybody there? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to talk. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Really it was supposed to be a brainstorming session, but at the end of the brainstorming session, I realized like, hey, I think I kind of want that job actually. Like, sure, and the Dalva Hideout, like, what we were really known for was a badass back bar of all kind of, different boutique spirits, a lot of Amari, quite a lot of Amari, but a lot of agave and a lot of everything else too. And so for me, it was right up my alley. I was like, oh, look, you're gonna somebody's gonna pay me to help them curate this book of boutique artisanal spirits and then figure out how to sell that stuff. Like, oh, it was cool. I was like, and you know, they seem to have so much integrity. I like working for small companies. I like working for small companies. I like working for, you know, people that really care about the things that they're selling, right? It makes my job so much easier. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a fucking awesome origin story and a great question one. So
thank you.
Cheers.
Hey, cheers, man.
Question 2, drink 2. What are we drinking?
So this is Genepi made by Bordiga.
Okay.
Bordiga is a 135-year-old distillery on the Italian side of the Alps.
Oh.
And the great-grandson of the founder was, I believe, 97, and he just died a couple months ago. But you know, he lived above the distillery, and until really like the last 20 years of his life or so, he wasn't really involved in the distillery. He was actually spending his time as an ambassador to Genepi, the category.
Okay.
Genepi is, for those that don't know, it's a type of wormwood. It's a little plant. Wormwood is a misnomer. It's not a type of wood at all.
Right.
It's a leafy, shrubby thing. And it really likes to live in the Alps. It likes to live at high altitude and pretty particular conditions. And in fact, it's become an endangered plant because of climate change. So as the Alps have sort of thawed out, there's an invasive plant species that's come in and knocked out some of the Genepi. And Genepi in general is just like very, very fickle. So Bordiga is a part of this program to repropagate it. They have these volunteers that come up to this little tiny village in the Alps called Elva, which has got a population of 88 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then they replant the Genepi and stay in the agriturismo. Anyway, this is estate-grown Genepi. It's a blend of Artemisia mutilina, which is also dubbed colloquially as white Genepi.
Okay.
And then there's another plant called Achillea muscata, which is not a type of Artemisia at all, but is actually colloquially described as yellow Genepi.
Okay.
And so that's what this is. So you know, if you were to go up to the Alps and drink this, you know, people would just drink it like in a cup, you know. But if here in New York and the rest of the country, a lot of bartenders are using it for cocktails.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, enjoy.
Awesome. Cheers. That's nice.
So tasty, right?
That's not what I expected, but yeah, that is
cool.
Damn good.
What did you expect?
I don't know. I guess because you said wormwood, so I was thinking a little bit more absinthe than that. But no, this is really not. It's like fruity almost.
Yeah.
Like it's
closest analog to the mainstream is something that rhymes with Flartreuse.
okay.
Yeah. In fact, actually, Chartreuse has a Genepi liqueur
Okay.
that they make that's just never made its way to the States. But Chartreuse is an amalgamation of a bunch of different herbs. Genepi is one of the front runners.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really nice. I'm digging that. That's
Hell yeah.
really fucking good.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is fucking delicious.
Awesome.
I'm digging that. Price point wise, like how much is that? Like,
It's cocktail affordable price. It's not going to break the bank.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we'll see what happens with, you know, the tariffs from the orange guy, but like maybe this is going to cost a lot more money. I don't know.
Okay.
You know, but for now we're doing pretty good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So question 2. I'm gonna read it just because again, for the people that don't know, what is Oliver McCrum?
Oh, great. Oliver's a person that started a wine importer 30 years ago. I like to tell people that he's kind of like Wine Yoda.
For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us.
Okay.
Or Italian Wine Yoda for me.
All right.
Yeah, he's very knowledgeable and very principled. And anyway, the ethos of the company is to sell spirit or wines from Italy. Original ethos of the company is to sell wines from Italy and to celebrate the biodiversity because there's so many different grape cultivars in Italy alone, just the one country, and so many different climates. And I mean, Italy is a really new country, right? It's been all these different things, and state to state, you know, they speak different languages. So there's a lot there. And then, you know, about like 7 or 8 years ago, you know, company got more serious about selling spirits, which is how I got my job. So yeah, we're an Italian wine and spirits importer.
Okay. Being an importer business,
Yeah.
what are some of the challenges that you guys face? And now, not dealing with, like you said, the orange guy, but like, what were like some of the big challenges, let's say like a year ago?
Yeah.
Before all the fucking tariffs and all the shit took place, but like what being an importer business, what is one of the biggest challenges you guys have?
Well, there's a lot of noise.
Okay.
There's a lot of supply in the world, and there are a lot of you know, there are a lot of brands out there, and you know, some things to the consumer it's difficult to understand, you know, who is bringing quality and who is not. I guess more to what I'm saying is, you know, you get a bag of potato chips and you look at the label or you look at the information on the back, and it says, you know, red dye number this and that, or the artificial flavors, blah, 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 right? It has like every single ingredient has to kind of be mapped out as per the FDA. And when it comes to wines and spirits, you know, they don't have the same regulations. So we don't really have any way of knowing. You know, we go to a bar and, you know, there's all these things on the back bar and you kind of call them out or whatever, or you go to a liquor store and you see all of these bottles, but you don't, it's really difficult for a consumer to know which things are made with real natural ingredients, which things are made by real people in, you know, sort of friendly, you know, way that involves, has integrity, and which things are just sort of being mass produced and are being sold with a gigantic marketing budget. So it's quite tough, you know, and the way to do it, it's clear, is not to disparage anybody else's thing, right? Also, so you need to find the way to tell the story just by talking about the good qualities of the thing that you are selling, which is quite tough.
Okay.
I guess. I think that's yeah. Anyway, that's probably the hardest thing, the hardest challenge.
So then, like, how do you guys come across the brand? Like, let's say these guys reached out to you. Do you then travel over, go through, and then decide that you're a business partner with them, or are they bought and then you become involved in the family, or I guess how does that work?
Sure. Well, I'm not really a decision maker at the final level in the company. I'm lucky I have a seat at the table, and our company operates in a very collegial way that involves a lot of people. And I think that's one of the strengths really of the company, is that there's so many people that have a seat at the table. You know, even when like new containers come in, you know, they sit down together in California and we'll taste like, you know, with like 8 people sitting there, just, you know, maybe somebody didn't perceive a flaw or whatever, to make sure that what's coming in is quality. With bringing in new producers or new products, you know, I think the things to be considered are, you know, does it fit the vision? Is there a home for it? Are we going to be able to sell it? Does the world really need another whatever? Sure. You know, and those are big questions to ask. You know, we work with distributors, most of them on the smaller side, all over the country, and you know, they're feeling fatigued and overwhelmed by so much supply right now, and so you really want, if you're bringing something to the table to share with a distributor, you want to make sure that the thing that you're bringing is going to hit, and you're not just, you know, a huckster showing up with whatever new thing every other week, right? You want to say, hey, this is awesome, and I can get behind it, and in fact, I'm going to help you, and that's the job of the supplier, right? So that our job, I always tell people, you know, distribution, the job is to get the thing on the shelf, and then the supplier job is to help get the thing off of the shelf, you know, and it's not quite that cut and dry, but that's definitely a way of looking at it.
Well, because we met at Leo's event, and
yes.
like you had all those amazing Amaros that you were, right? Like that's what you were tasting.
Yeah.
Like, and so like each one of those, like you don't own those, right? Like you're just business partners.
Yeah.
With them.
Yeah.
Right?
They're producers that we are lucky to represent, and have found a home in our portfolio. And yeah, I mean, they are their own business.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a whole supply chain happening, and it's the 3-tier system, which you're probably familiar with.
Yeah.
But it's great because it allows for so much collaboration. Along the way, there's so many different people that are talking and communicating energy and excitement or not about a product before it ever makes it to its home in a bar.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then just our last follow-up question, is there a product right now that you're really excited about that's in the portfolio?
Oh man, I can't even, I don't even know where to start. I mean,
everybody loves their children equally.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. You know, I in fact, this is in the portfolio in case you didn't guess that already. And everything that I brought for us to taste together today is something from the portfolio. I've been really excited about wine lately. I've been sort of transferring myself into, well, they've given me the opportunity to sell a little bit of wine. We started a distributor here in New York ourselves at the beginning of February, and so I'm also pulling a wine bag now, which is hilarious.
Awesome.
And I'm really excited about some of these wine producers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. It's question 2.
Hell yeah.
Question 3, drink 3. What are we drinking?
Okay, I've got a purple spritz.
Ooh.
So this is an Amaro. It's a carciofo, which means artichoke in Italian.
Okay, awesome.
So it's made with a protected purple artichoke in Emilia-Romagna.
Right.
Only 5 farmers are allowed to grow this artichoke.
Okay.
And the producer is a really interesting guy who's actually originally from Albania. His name is Ergin Alko. He has a little bar in Bologna, and he's a bartender also, and over many years of bartending, he experimented with using seawater in his cocktails, and then he decided he was going to start a spirits business. And since he'd spent half of his life in Albania and half of his life in Bologna, he decided to make things that used ingredients from both places.
Okay.
And then the star of the show is seawater from the Adriatic Sea, which is the body of water in the middle of the 2 places.
Awesome.
So that's the Sette Mezzo. Sette Mezzo is like the card game that the old guys play on the corner in Bologna.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this is a really cool Lambrusco producer, also from Emilia-Romagna, called Zanassi. And, they do something really interesting. Lambrusco, comes in many different shapes and sizes, and there's plenty of Lambrusco that's just awful. And I think that was the case for, there were so many of them for so long that a lot of people got a bad taste in their mouth for Lambrusco. But Lambrusco, I think, is having a moment, and it's having a comeback. Actually, Ergin describes Lambrusco as their Coca-Cola in Emilia-Romagna.
Okay.
Anyway, this Lambrusco producer is really cool in particular, not just because they're organic and family run, checking all the boxes for us, but also they take the juice and they freeze it before the fermentation, and so then they are able to de-thaw some of the juice and ferment it year-round, which means that you always get fresh Lambrusco.
No, but all right, cheers.
Okay, cheers.
Can't go fucking wrong with that, can you?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
All right, so question 3. We call it our talking shit segment because we've had 3 drinks already.
All right, let's talk some shit.
We're a little bit more open and honest, and this question comes from our mutual friend Leo.
Leo!
So Leo wants to know, how is it to learn about wine after spending your entire career making cocktails and being spirits driven?
Yeah.
Spirits driven.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of differences. I think wine people, wine already knew and has known for so long that, or there's a greater percentage of people, at least in that industry, that understand that it's an agricultural product and lift it up, for being such. And spirits, people are coming around, but it's a little bit more in its infancy in that regard as an industry. People just don't realize that the things that are in this bottle had to come from somewhere, and it's cool if you're connected to the farmer or they were wild foraged or whatever it is, wherever they came from. It's funny that Leo asked that question because Leo represents, for those that don't know, Leo Commercio is the sales I don't know what his title is, national sales manager for PM Spirits, which Oliver McCrum and PM Spirits has a strong alliance here in New York. PM Spirits is our distributor for most of the spirits portfolio that we represent in New York, and we owe a lot to PM Spirits for helping. It's been a good partnership for us, for both parties. But PM Spirits sort of epitomizes that, right? Because in a way, especially in its inception, PM Spirits was out there on an island as a spirits distributor that cared so much about the agricultural perspective to the spirits that they were selling. It really started out with cognac and Armagnac and Calvados, spirits from France, which are agricultural. And you look at the competition or the mainstream versions of those categories, and what are they doing? They're adding caramel color to tell the story that the spirit is older than it is. Right. They're adding sugar a lot of times, because people like sweet things, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better because it's sweeter. They're adding a bunch of fake chemicals, and they're not really propping up the farmers. They're just using grapes from a bunch of different farmers, right? I'm talking about cognac, of course, right? And so it's cool. But PM brought this other perspective, and sort of there's a few other people that are selling cognac or working. And now there's quite a few more, but there throughout the years there have been other people that are also doing it. But PM was definitely a harbinger of telling that story. And so selling wine for me is really fun because I get to go and talk to people that are already. In a way, it's great because they already understand. I don't have to spend the first 15 minutes of the sales meeting explaining that all of the wine that I want to show them is coming from small farmers that we have relationships with, that are real people that are just trying to feed their families and are practicing honest, farming techniques, sustainable agriculture, and so on. The flip side is, they're so used to it that they're also jaded. They're just jaded in a different way, so it's interesting that way.
Do you ever miss being behind the stick?
Oh, every day. I'm always going to be a bartender.
Okay.
I love bartending, and it really, it excites me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I love the hospitality aspect to it. I love you get to set the tone. Often you're setting the music. You're curating. A good bartender is curating an experience for everybody that's in the establishment, right? They're talking. If you have a regular sitting here and you think, and then you have somebody else sitting next to them, and they're both just reading a book or whatever, looking at their phone, snore, right? You might as well introduce them and help them. Maybe they don't want to talk to each other, and that's okay too. But at least help them break the ice a little bit. And then also keeping out the bad vibes, right? Whatever that means. It doesn't necessarily mean being confrontational, but also could just be you see somebody start to switch that flip or flip that switch. You're able to go and help spin it in a positive way and turn the vibes around, and it's a party. You're hosting a party. God bless the bartenders. Noblest profession out there.
I agree.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider opening up your own spot?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility in my future. I'm not looking at anything in the imminent, not tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah. But I think it's art too, and that's part of the reason that I wanted to. You asked me where you wanted to do this interview, and I thought Palmetto immediately because it's my favorite bar in Brooklyn. Ryan and Liz, they have an eye for style. They've definitely they're curating an incredible experience for people. There's zero pretension. You walk in the door and you don't feel, judged. You can order a vodka soda if you want to. You can get whatever you want. I mean, within the realm of reason, right? If they have it, if they don't have the thing, they'll make you something different. But it's a fine line, right? There's so many people offering quality that are also super pretentious about it, and then there are so many people that are, not offering quality at all. They're just like, vodka Red Bull and get the fuck out of my face. Yeah. So, right, it's like, it's cool when there's, and they're serving the neighborhood, and it's a great neighborhood. Right now we're in Bushwick, Brooklyn, which is, great area to be in.
Yeah, no, and this bar is absolutely beautiful. I have to come back when it's open because this is just, it's gorgeous.
Dude, let's do it.
Yeah, we'll have a good drinking fest, like, not on a Monday. That's fucking awesome.
5 drinks to midnight.
There we go. Perfect. Well, there we go. I mean, that's question 3. See, we didn't talk that much shit, and I think we answered Leo's question. So,
all right.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers.
Question 4, drink 4. What are we drinking?
Okay, we got a little 50-50 martini situation. I'll start. This is made by the same guy that made the Sette Mezzo Amaro that we just drank in the spritz a minute ago.
Okay.
This is a gin. Menegix actually means mint in Albanian, so it's got mint in it. It's also got juniper. It's got a little bit of sea fennel, lime zest, caper berries, and also seawater from the Adriatic Sea. Okay. This gin is like swimming in the ocean. Okay. Yeah, it's the best way to describe it.
Awesome.
And then this is a Vino Amaro. So it's called Amarulivo. Amaro and Ulivo, there's a combination of the two words. Ulivo is olive in Italian.
Okay.
This producer's really cool. Serene, she's from, there's a woman that's from right around Lake Garda. Lake Garda is a glacial lake in northeastern Italy. It's this big, beautiful green lake. I mean, you can see your feet when you're swimming. You can see fish swimming around, and it's beautiful, warm weather, and they're famous for growing lemons. Okay. So she uses a little bit of the lemons in the Vino Amaro. It's also got wormwood, mugwort, and then the wine is Trebbiano Lugano, which is Garda has its own DOC for wine, but the grape is Trebbiano Lugano, which is genetically identical to a grape called Verdicchio. So really bright and juicy, high tone, fabulous wine. And then the reason for the olives is olive tree leaves. So okay. It's kind of like an herbal, juicy, citrusy Vino Amaro.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Cheers. Awesome. Cheers. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm digging that.
Hell yeah. I mean, the martini's having a moment, and there's a reason why.
Yeah. Alright, so question 4.
Okay.
Agave spirits, Amaros, and other niche categories have been booming. What do you think is the driving point of that growth?
Okay, great question. Yeah, great question. I mean, it's really interesting, right? You're hearing from big companies all over the world that, sales are down. And just to your point, these niche categories are not down.
Right.
I think that the consumer's wisening up. Yeah. I think people are getting smarter. At least they care more. Right. At least they care more. And there's a lot of information out there about people being in a health kick right now. There's a whole movement around NA and low ABV drinks. I think that that's part of it. I think that people want to drink less, but they want to, if they are going to drink and it's going to be a treat, then they're going to do a little bit more research and make sure it's something that they really care about. I don't know. I also, the home consumer got a lot smarter during COVID.
I was gonna say, do you think that that's like the only benefit of COVID is that drinkers got a little bit they started doing research on stuff and veered off their beaten path of being like, oh, I'm going to just drink this and that's what I drink when I go out.
Yeah.
That they actually have kind of done, like you said, research and kind of expanded the palate.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, things that we would have never sold in retail before COVID. I mean, COVID happened and all of a sudden we had retailers reaching out to us for all kinds of weird stuff. Myrto, I mean, that's a myrtle berry liqueur from Sardinia. Like, who knows what that is, right? But, people started to ask, what else you got? What else is going on? Where normally you go into retailers, and it's still the case, I don't want to paint the wrong picture, but you go into a retailer and they'll be like, what do you have that sells well? And I'm like, what? Like, that's your job.
Yeah.
That's my job. That's like, I want to help you, but like, I don't have any, I don't sell Tito's vodka. I'm sorry, I don't have that. Like, if that's what you're asking me for. But you also, it's the job of the small retailers to differentiate themselves. If they just carry Tito's vodka and they just carry big brands, it's not going to work. I mean, they're not going to be able to compete in pricing with these gigantic stores. They can buy super deep, right? They can eat, they're buying 10 cases or 20 cases and putting them in their storage room, and it's taking up half the space here in New York, right? They need to buy something that's different, which is good. It's better for the world, right? Things don't need to be so homogenous. It's boring, right? I don't know. I mean, if you went to every single grocery store and they all had the exact same thing, we'd just be bored. We'd be bored.
Yeah. Just fatigued and
yeah, it's terrible.
No one wants to drink the same thing over and over and over again.
No.
And if you do, get out more.
Yeah.
That's really boring. Storytelling, you kind of talked a little bit about that, is a huge part of spirits. How do you communicate the identity of the brands that you represent?
Oh yeah, great question. I mean, I think education is everything. And it's fun, right? I mean, people want it. You said it yourself. Storytelling. I mean, people want to know the story. They want to be connected to the people that make the thing. They want to learn about it. And why shouldn't they? I mean, everybody wants to know the name of the cow when they go to a restaurant, right? That's like such a big deal. I mean, I think we should take that same ethos to the spirits world. And I mean, the stories are everything. And for me, it's fun. I don't want to go in and sell something just on points or pricing. I mean, how boring of a life would that be? Just I mean, we could do that, sometimes you have to do that. I'm not looking down on anybody that does do that, but it's much more fun to be able to tell a story and bring something to life for people. And that's really why I got into this business.
Well, do you have, because again, one of the things that amazed me about you was when we were at the PM Spirits event, and you had 14 bottles to represent. And you were just flying through, and even today, there's no notes, there's no nothing, and do you have a special trick of remembering everybody's story, or is it just comes natural and that it's just you're in the right spot of the right job for you?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it did take years.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I was born with. That's definitely not the case. I remember starting out as a salesperson in San Francisco, working for Pacific Edge, and going into an account and shaking. Physically shaking as I'm trying to present something to somebody. So I think it's a normal process for people out there, if anybody's getting into the business, to know that it's not something that you're born with, and it's definitely something that develops over time. For me, it's not memorizing a script really. It's sort of really caring about the product and the people that are making it. And I'm fortunate that I work for a company that sends me to Italy to go and meet the producers, and so I feel really connected to them, and they come to the market and work with us. And so, I'm really just speaking off the cuff a lot of times. I mean, you do find yourself, if you tell the same story 15 times in a day, by the 15th time you might be saying something that you said before. It's pretty likely. But in general, they're real stories. It's not a script.
Well, and again, it comes off that way. So that's not what I meant.
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't think about that.
But it comes off true and genuine, and that's one of the coolest things about what we do on the show. Because again, we get to try a bunch of new stuff, and again, I would never have had any of this if it wasn't sitting down and talking with you.
Awesome.
But then also listening to you talk about it so passionately, it just makes me more excited. So that's just I would never have a gin that, like you said, tastes like you're swimming in the ocean. It's just fucking awesome. That's so cool.
And the really special thing about it is that, you know, as a bartender, people would bring me these things, and it was like, oh my God, this is a new thing. This is a new tool in the tool chest, right? This is a new color for me to paint with. Like, this is something that I can do something different with for a cocktail. Because if you're trying to be experimental or creative about cocktails, like, you need different things in the arsenal, right? Like, and my attitude towards cocktails changed a lot since I was younger, right? When I started out, I was really into 10 ingredient drinks, right? I was feeling myself, and I thought, like, hey, let's put all these things together, and you know, and then this is like a totally unique experience for somebody, right? But actually, you know, these people put a lot of work to put this liquid into this bottle, and so, like, I just want to showcase that. And so, you know, 3 or 4 ingredients, 5 ingredients, you know, but like, I'm not like putting together, you know, whatever. It could still be a symphony of flavor, and we're still looking, you know, for all of the same criteria, you know, balance and creativity, and you know, what does it bring to the palate? But yeah, I don't know. I for me, it's exciting to see the excitement when I show up somewhere, and I don't, you know, it's like, you could sell a lot of different things in this business, right? But like, for me, I love that I get to walk in the door and people are usually happy to see me. Like, especially if we already know each other. It's like, oh, I'm not gonna like shove anything down anyone's throat. I've never been in the position where I had to. Like, if you like this, like, this is what it is. I can tell you about it. But like, if you don't like it, that's okay. You know what I mean? So it's a different sort of a situation. I mean, that's sort of the rub working for a small company. That's the there are lots of hard parts too, but that's like one of the good things.
Do you think that being behind the stick gives you an edge up of when you come in to sell to a bar? Like, you understand the pains that are of the bar world? Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. I know where things fit. I know kind of, I can suggest cocktails to people. I can help them figure out how to use things. Although I will say, I have a coworker in California, and she doesn't approach it the same way. She doesn't have as much bar experience, but her move, which has been really successful, is, you know, finding the creative people and saying, like, hey, I don't know what to do with this. Like, what do you want to do with this? What do you think we should do with this? So in a lot of ways, it's not really about, it doesn't have to be about me, you know? It can also be about them. We're hosting a cocktail competition right now, which by the time that this airs, will be like almost into already. So it's not so much a plug for it, but it's for Bordiga, and you know, it's a cocktail competition where bartenders enter, and then everybody, you know, hangs out together and makes a drink with the Genepi, actually, and it's blind judged. Like, the judges are in another room, and really the thing that I love about it the most, about doing that competition, because it's our 4th year doing it, is that it's really not about me, and it's not really about us, and it's kind of about Bordiga, but it's really about the bartenders that are making the drink, you know, and celebrating their creativity. And I think that's, you know, sort of, maybe like that's part of my ethos personally, is like, there's a lot of products out there, you know, you have a lot of things to choose from when you're a bartender, so, you know, and you have a lot of people that are like shoving things down your throat constantly. And it gets annoying. I was mean to reps as a bartender. I hated reps. I mean, reps would come in the door, I wouldn't even serve them if they sat down at the bar. I'd be like, what are you doing here? Get the fuck out of here. You know, I have a lot of bad rep karma coming my way. You know, now I'm on the other side.
Karma.
Well,
so then, I guess, when it comes to bringing product to market, how do you balance tradition versus innovation? Like, again, you have tradition here, like, where that story is based off of tradition, but then also innovation. So how do you balance that?
It's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think, well, really to quote Oliver, because, you know, when I started with the job, Oliver and I spent a lot of time talking about, you know, what the ethos of the company was. He was like, I was like, well, how do I pitch the company? Like, so I had a lot of time speaking with him and hearing his perspective. You know, his name is on the sign up front, right? So, you know, for him, you know, authenticity and quality were pillars. And I think those are pretty cool pillars to stand by, you know? So authenticity, it's you know it when you see it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's hard to define it, right? Like we know when something is, if someone's being authentic, we can just sense it, you know? And other times you just feel that somebody is just not really being their genuine self. And I think the same is true of spirits. You know, traditional is also a weird word. Like it's a weird thing, right? We were talking a little bit about this with the coffee liqueur, that the neutral spirit in the coffee liqueur is something that is being recycled. But just to backtrack, like neutral spirit is ubiquitous in so many of these things in this category, like historically, that neutral spirit would have been maybe grappa, right? I don't really know. I'm not a historian, right? So I'm not sure, but like it certainly would. It might look different. Also, like the story might be different. You wouldn't necessarily have someone like me going around. You certainly didn't have a 3-tier system, right? You would go to a bar and order an Amaro, and they would just have the house Amaro that they would pour you. I'm not sure how things were. So there's a lot of things that have diverged historically, and we're definitely, nobody's doing things the way that they were doing them 100 years ago, because they weren't alive then, so we can't even really know what they were doing. So it's difficult to gauge what's traditional and what's not. Okay. I mean, I really love the story of Bortiga because it's such an old place, but in the same brain, I think that this guy is totally an up-and-comer, like a total hitter, and he's thinking outside of the box and breaking the mold, you know?
Yeah.
So there's merits in both sides, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely, yeah, thumbs up there. Like that is just, past two have been fucking killer, so like that's amazing. So, okay, there we go, that's question 4.
Hell yeah, cheers!
There we go, cheers! Question 5, drink 5, last drink of the night. What are we drinking?
All right, so we've got a little grappa from Sicily.
Very nice.
Only grappa distillery in Sicily. They're called Jovi.
Okay.
This is made with Nerello Muscalese, which is sort of the hero grape of Sicily, or of Etna anyway, which is the volcano in Sicily on the east side.
Okay.
These guys are great. The father, Giovanni, started distilling, not just started distilling, started building stills. Built his own still when he was like 12 or something. Now his son Giuseppe is distilling things too. They make a bunch of crazy stuff. They're making a agricole style rum with sugarcane that they grew themselves.
Nice.
They're making kind of like I don't know what to call it, a spirit made from the paddle of the prickly pear cactus.
Okay.
They're very experimental, but everything started with the grappa. So grappa is sort of, well, I spent a lot of time thinking about, like, how is it that Italy has this rich tradition of, you know, making wine with all these different grape cultivars all over the country, all these different people making wine for centuries, and they don't have any brandy. Like, what's up with that, right? You know, you go right over the border to France, and you've got Cognac, you've got Armagnac, you've got Calvados, right? Like, people are, they're doing that, and it's like, why doesn't Italy do that, really? I mean, there's a few people, but it's not like a thing, right?
Yeah.
Right? And the answer to that question is they are doing it, but they're doing it with grappa. I mean, so grappa is made from the must. It's after they make wine, the spent grape matter is then fermented and distilled into alcohol. So it's also a story of sustainability, which is high up there on the list for me.
That's awesome.
I feel like grappa has gotten a bad name. There's a lot of bad grappa out there in the world, right? But I really think everybody should be drinking more grappa. So I guess we're gonna drink some grappa.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Were we supposed to shoot this or sip it?
No, sip. Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. I'm gonna sip it.
I'm gonna sip it as well. So
Yeah.
Didn't know if it was a shooting style drink or if it was more of a sipping style. So like that's. Is it mostly like shooting or like? Or
No, mostly sipping.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, enjoyment.
Okay.
However you want to enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So question 5.
Okay.
Comes down to the Whiskey Wednesday coin. You
Okay.
can flip it. You can spin it. You can do whatever you want.
Okay.
The coin will give us the answer. You don't have to answer.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you feel so inclined,
Okay.
please answer. So,
Okay.
question 5. Do you believe the future of spirits lies more in the craft and independent producers rather than the legacy brands?
Oh. I mean, that's a giant fuck yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So then, what advantages do smaller producers have in today's market?
Well, variety. I think that's the name of the game, right?
Yeah.
Bringing people something different, offering a different perspective, and not being stuck in the guise of this the skeleton of the current system. Being able to innovate and being able to diverge off of the prescribed path and being able to do whatever it is that you need to do to succeed. Small brands are more nimble. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, there we go.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck it.
Okay.
Well, there we go. That's 5 drinks down, 5 questions answered.
That was great.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks to Ryan and Liz also for hosting us.
Yes, thanks, Ryan and Liz.
This has been amazing. Until we can drink together again.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.